That is leading by example by owning the thing that I sucked at. Even the L's are dubs,
right,
if you will, if you handle them well.
Yeah, because if you get stuck and you're like, now I can't bring stuff to Sam because I messed up. It's a very broken system of perfection being the standard, but ownership is the standard, right? And then when you're ready to own up to your junk, it's like, hey, let's move on together. What's up, guys? Valor Nation podcast. Thank you for listening, whether you're at the gym, whether you're on a run, whether you're rock climbing, whether you're in the car or doing something else. We appreciate you making time for this. I sat down with one of my best buddies in the whole world, Ross Walters.
Guilty.
And we talked about something near and dear, one of the most foundational books and principles thereof, Extreme Ownership by Jocko, Willink, and Leif, Babin. Huge takeaways. If you are a human that breathes and operates, I think there's something you can take away from this, not just for leaders, but for anybody. But this is my first time back in a while. I missed an epic podcast last week.
It was really epic. Justin from Good Heart. And Flash Quotes.
What's that about?
That was one of my favorite podcasts that we've done. And it's not because
cold.
It's not because you weren't there, okay?
That was cold.
But Justin is a really just awesome guy to talk to. You'll have to go back and listen to it if you want to, but he has a coffee catering company with 44 carts.
Holy guacamole.
And last year in 2024, he did 3,000 events in his company with Good Heart. So divide that by 52, right? And
somebody divide that thing by 52.
Comment below. 3,000 divided by 52. The results may shock you. Anyways, he created the software to power that scale of business, right? It's called Flash Quotes. And Flash Quotes is sort of just a one-stop shop service software that you can use in your coffee catering business. It all starts with a lead intake form that you embed on your website, which just is simply when people go to your website, they fill out the details of their event and it sends you as the user of Flash Quotes a lead, and then you send them a quote. It all looks amazing. When people receive quotes, it's like, it just looks so official. And we only ever take on sponsors of the program whenever we use and love the service. Like we use Localize, our SEO
person, people, places, thing, provider, purveyor, pizza,
sponsor. God,
I was so off.
We use Localize, the other sponsor of the program. We use Flash Quotes. So we're not trying to sell you something that we don't believe in. I'm telling you that our catering operation has significantly grown since we started using Flash Quotes and Localize, because I think one of the big reasons it's grown is it's just way easier for someone to submit a quote. A lot of times people start their catering operation with just like, hey, DM me if you'd like to book the cart, or like, hey, email this email if you'd like to book the cart. And that is not a very friendly customer journey, right? And so the lead intake form is huge with Flash Quotes, but what's bigger in my opinion is like the team aspect of it. It used to be like when we would book an event, my stomach would drop a little bit because it's like, oh God, I have all of these details to work out. I have to go through all these communications and calculations of like how long it's going to take to get there. Flash Quotes takes care of all of that for you. That allows you to focus on growing your business. That allows you to focus on caring for your team. That allows you to focus on improving the operation, because Flash Quotes is taking care of a lot of stuff. If Flash Quotes would have existed when we started the cart,
would we have ever opened a coffee shop?
Maybe not. It just would have taken so many hours of work out of our start and really got us in line. So head over to flashquotes.com/valor. The link is in the description of the video. And when you sign up through that link, we get a little kickback. That's nice for the program, so we can continue doing this. Without further ado, let's get to the show. It's a great day to have a great day here at Valor Coffee. Let's freaking go.
Yeah, let's freaking go, dude. Dude, I'm rusty. I haven't been on air in a little bit.
Well, I'm excited to be here. We've got a scintillating topic per usual. How are you feeling?
Dude, I'm coming off a big loss in Ultimate Frisbee this morning. Sometimes we divide old guys versus young guys with like, an age line. Age line was 31 today. So,
and you are?
I'm 27.
27. Okay.
Which that surprised a lot of guys. They said, "You're only 27?" And I'm like, okay.
How did that make you feel?
I guess I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel cared for, and I didn't feel related to, which
Yikes.
is one of our service philosophies at Valor. So they will not be getting a job at Valor anytime soon.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. No, I think it's just the whole like, almost 2 kids,
Yeah.
business. We're just so successful for our young age.
Yeah.
But we got smoked.
The young guys got smoked.
Experience conquered youthfulness.
Yeah.
And inexperience.
In other news in my sports world, I joined.
Which is why you're here.
I joined a new basketball team, a league, and the first game was last night. Didn't make it.
Oh, you didn't
I didn't
make
make
it.
it. I had a rehearsal beforehand.
7:30
Rehearsal went long.
Because of the Stevie Wonder song?
Yes, dude.
Was it hard for you? Is anything hard for you?
I can do all things. No, it's just they changed the arrangement a bunch, and who cares? This is a coffee podcast.
Hey, speaking of coffee, I pulled a fancy coffee that we got while we were on our little escapades. We went to Philly last week. I don't know if you got to talk about that on the program.
Not much.
We got to go to Philly and Westchester. Go see Mayday.
Austin, Keaton.
Austin,
Love
dude.
y'all.
Hey, if you're listening to this at the gym, man, just keep pumping one more set. You got this.
One more rep.
One more rep. Right, not set. Or one more set.
You could throw another set on if you really wanted to.
That's right.
Do that.
We went to a lot of shops, a lot of great shops.
Yeah.
Ross.
Gosh.
A lot of great restaurants, Elemento, Middle Child. But we went to a little hyper specialty joint called Thank You.
Yeah.
And they had a bunch of European coffees, which is always fun for us Americanos.
Yeah.
So got a coffee from April in Copenhagen, and it's a Guatemala geisha. And did I just make a ristretto of it? Because we just had a little bit left and I just want to see what would happen. Yes.
Well, you ground it too fine.
Which is incredibly rare.
Yeah.
For me grinding.
You just zeroed that puppy out, didn't you?
I just zeroed that puppy out. Do you want to try it?
Sure, I'll try it.
Well,
Like, how ristretto is this?
20 to 20, baby. 20 to 20. It's not.
It tastes awesome.
It's not. It's just in your face.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have just hit it with some BP. I'm talking bypass water. Stretch it out a little bit so I could have something to drink while we're talking.
BP, aka bypass water. Nice.
BP dubs.
BP dubs, baby. No, that tastes fine. The acidity is a little biting, but okay.
Dude, coffee guru.
Speaking of coffee, our coffee's ready. So
Hark, was that a 0D
Be right.
defect? I don't know if that's better or worse, but me and Ross are kind of road dogs now. Okay. And we're going to be traveling the nation this year. We're going to be visiting wholesale partners, going to new places. And we're really excited for that. Right, Ross? Ross agrees. Ross is like probably 95% of his job is wholesale.
Yep.
And like 5% of my job is wholesale. So this is usually one of the big ways we cross paths right now. And I had so much fun hanging out with you, bro.
Oh, dude, it was awesome.
I'm trying to get better at basketball.
Yeah.
What's it called? My wrist.
You got to load your wrist.
I'm loading my wrist.
Tuck your elbow, load your wrist.
Yep.
If you notice, like, you can't, when you load your wrist.
We got all day, by the way.
Yeah. When you load your wrist, it corrects a lot of other issues. So, because it's hard to like load your wrist and your elbow be out. Like you'd be pushing it that way, right? So if you load your wrist and that way you're up under the ball, your elbow and your wrist and your shoulder are all in line with the basket.
Did someone just figure out like what's the best way to throw this thing into a hoop?
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about.
Right. Yeah. And then, I what I've been focusing on lately, and my 3-point percentage has gone up since I started focusing on it. Not that I keep my stats or remember that stuff, but
do you ever walk away from a game like, all right, I was 7 for 16?
No.
Or it was like I was pretty good.
Especially just with my game, which is just I'm just banging around down there, dude. Just it's like I'm getting putbacks, I'm getting rebounds, and then like I think 3-pointers are the only thing I really pay attention to because it's like something I don't usually do. So I was like, oh, I hit I went, 3 for 4 today. Like that was awesome.
Right.
But focusing on my middle finger being the last to contact the ball and just like putting that middle finger in the basket is kind of what I've been focusing on. Anyways,
love that.
yeah, it's been really fun. And that applies to coffee because it helps me be more of a joyful human.
And you had it by your side while you were talking about it.
Right. We read this book called Extreme Ownership years ago.
Kind of corny sounding, huh?
Maybe to some. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, 2 Navy SEALs. And some of you may have heard of them. Jocko's got a podcast that's pretty big.
Probably similar size of ours, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like big, sort of in this realm of big podcasts. And I think wasn't the book recommended to us by the Cat and Cloud guys?
Oh, surely.
If you've listened to this podcast,
we do anything they say.
You know that like when we were coming up in coffee, that was like they were our mentors from across the great nation of US.
And maybe the guys that owned the building that the cafe is in now, like they gave us that book E-Myth. That was really helpful. Just that concept of scalability,
E-Myth was huge, man.
Systems.
That was the main takeaway was systems. Like it's like when you read all these books, you take something from each one. Hot take. I know. Hot take. Whoa. But it's like there's no one book like besides the Bible for me that is like a one-stop shop. Like, everything I need to know about business and life is found in this book.
Right.
But I take away one thing from each book and it just sort of like all molds together. Riley's coming in to grab some coffee. He's not feeling too well. So say hey to the camera, Riley.
Yeah, moon the camera.
Yeah, let the listeners know that he just mooned the camera.
Yeah, like 100%.
Just kidding.
Yeah, what's funny, I know we're going to get into this book, but it's like, I honestly don't think I finished it. I feel like I probably made like 8% through and I was like, I really feel like the message is getting hammered into my brain.
Yeah.
And I constantly think about this book,
dude,
and the principles thereof.
Yeah, it's definitely in my top 3. So the title of this podcast is Everything Wrong with Your Business is Your Fault.
Crap.
Ooh, hard pill to swallow. But
what about
right? So your brain may go 1,000 different directions of like, okay, what are all the things wrong with my business, and how are they my fault? I'm just one person, And I think that this book, like, we just got Chat GPT to pull up the titles and a little brief bullet point summary of all the chapters, just to jog our memory on what this, the details of this book. But the main crux of the book is this first chapter, Extreme Ownership, and Mr. Chet, aka Chat GPT, says leaders must take full responsibility for everything in their organization. No blaming, no excuses. If something goes wrong, it's on you. Ownership builds trust and sets the example for the team. And I just think, like, man, really practically, like when something goes wrong at the roastery, like let's say we run out of coffee or a shipment is late or whatever it is. It's like, okay, transparently, that is not in my direct job description to manage inventory levels at the roastery, right?
Yep.
But I am over the people that work here. I'm over them, and it's their responsibility. So it's my responsibility. It's like the same concept with the coach of a team, like, in the NFL. It's like, as the coach of that team, it's your job to win. That's it. Very simple. And it's your job to configure and motivate the players on the field to get the job done, to win. That's the only job that matters. It's not like effort. It's just winning the game, right? And so in this case, winning is like serving our customers well, right?
Keeping green in house,
Yeah,
baby.
like keeping it stocked. So if that result is not being accomplished here, and it's my job as like the leader, the coach of this team to win, and we're not winning, that is my fault.
Right.
How do you see this play out in your line of work?
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's something even to verbiage, like every orientation we talk about servant leadership and the concept of it's even less like we're over somebody, but we're supporting them. Like we are their net, and anything that falls through, that it hits us last, and it's on us to catch it. And I think the crux of this is not like if someone's put off by this concept, the whole idea of like it's your fault or it's this person's fault, that's just more kitsch. Like the reason we're talking about this is towards solution, because what isn't that big of a deal, but it's still a good place to start, is like assigning blame is not the most important part of this whole thing, but it's like, it really does start coming back on you if you're not like working towards solution. And I feel like a big way you don't work towards solution is if you don't take responsibility.
Yep.
So that's why it's important to like receive that harsh reality of if it's your business, it's your fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if I feel like Joe Schmo on my team or in the other department is messing up, and I'm like, stinks for him, stinks for that guy. Like, but I'm doing my stuff. I sent my email.
Yeah.
I gave my notice. I put my note in the order, but it's like, does that really matter? Does it? And that, it sounds funny almost to talk about in reality, but internally, that's my dialogue all the time. Is if something goes wrong, I'm young, so like at 27, I'm still just trying to like one of my defaults is like, I got to cover myself. I got to make sure like I don't take the hit for this.
And that's why you're still on the young team at Frisbee.
That is why I'm still on the young team. I got to take responsibility.
You're trying to cover so you don't look bad.
Right.
100%. Me too.
And that's what we're contending with through this. Like this is helping, because it feels so much better to come out on the other side and be like, take ownership, own the mistake, see it, and just go, oh, that's not so bad. It's not so bad to wear the fault, to like embrace the mistake and know because I've done it, now I can step forward without worrying about covering myself. Right. So, I mean, in our sphere, in the cafes, it's like probably one of the most practical ways. And if we're just talking about working on the bar, and this is something we kind of, a thing that the book talks about is like decentralized command, but everybody having the identity of a leader as well is really huge. Because one of my least favorite things in the cafe is when there's an error. And this is just small stuff like per drink. Someone comes back and they're like, oh, I asked for this iced, The worst response is like, oh, well, I just made it as the ticket came in. It said iced. Right. Or it said hot, Yeah. That person must have rang it in wrong. It's like, boo.
I've heard that so many times in restaurants or whatever, where there's an error and then the person that gives you the drink like throws their teammate under the bus. Yeah. Like, man, and that's a key takeaway from this one too. It applies to hospitality. Like it's always me. Right. It's all, or at the very least, it's we. Like, I'm sorry we couldn't take care of that for you. I'm going to solve this for you right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, let's just almost skip the assignment of blame. Be like, oh man, I'm so sorry. Let's totally write this up right now. And you don't need to worry about like whose fault it is. Yeah. Another example would be like, if I'm working behind the bar and whoever it'd be in like we have a point position, like a shift lead, and they're looking after the performance of the whole team in their position. So if I'm like doing like the bar back kind of support role, and say we have someone that's just having a rough day at concierge and they're just sending in kind of inaccurate order after inaccurate order, I need to kind of take that cue of like, okay, I need to check on them and not just cast blame, but be like, this system is now not functioning as it should. What do I want to do to resolve that? Because that's on me. It's not on them. They need help. So it's like, hey, why don't we switch positions? It seems like things are kind of coming in a little inaccurate. Let's just take like 10 or 15 minutes, or like, I'll just finish out your like time in this position, and it's not about, that's a big like check your ego moment.
Yes.
Of, put your preferences aside and go where the need is.
Yeah. This is all about results.
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, like the whole reason we say like, that everything wrong in your business is your fault, is it's not to make you feel bad or to disempower you or to get down in the dumps. It's like, if you are really after achieving greater results and problem solving in your business, the fastest, most effective way to do that is it starts with the leader.
Yeah. Yeah. If anything, it's an empowerment of like, okay, if it's all my fault, I can fix it.
Because and let's just put a little bit of a finer point on that incorrect drink situation. Let's say you and I are working on bar. I'm on concierge. I enter the order in wrong. You make that drink the wrong drink. The guest says, hey, I actually wanted this 16 ounce, not 12 ounce. That's fully on me. But if you're the leader in that situation, you're thinking, okay, what is the problem right now? What do I need to overcome? The problem is that this guest is unhappy now because really the concierge put the drink in wrong.
Yeah.
If the result you want is, I want this guest to have the correct drink and I want them to feel great about that and feel like we took care of them, the fastest way to do that is not to cast blame to me, bro.
I'm sorry.
The fastest way to get to that intended result is to just own it and make the drink. We don't need to confuse them with all this talk about like, oh, well, the order was put in wrong. And, it's like, that's all just noise, man. Like, if your ego can handle it, just take it. Just take the full blame and responsibility. And what I love about that is a couple things. But one, it reminds me of another one of these core books that we've passed around our team here, and we always reference 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni.
Thank you, Patrick.
The 5 dysfunctions, I can't remember all of them. Once again, I don't take away everything from these books, but the first one is that trust is the foundation of a healthy culture and a healthy team.
Yep.
Ooh, crazy idea, right? Like, no, but it's easier said than done, of course. So that's the first dysfunction. The 5th dysfunction is inattention to results. And so whenever let's say you threw me under the bus there, that's going to break our trust, which is going to lead to results that are suboptimal because our trust is broken, like peer to peer.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then, like I said earlier about like, if your ego can handle it, just take the L, quote unquote, to get to the result. What I love about that is it's an abundance mindset instead of a poverty mindset.
Yeah.
A poverty mindset says that there's not enough to go around for me to thrive. There's not enough to go around for me to be healthy. There's not enough to go around for me to be liked by other people or whatever it is that you're after, like approval of man. But an abundance mindset says like, I'm good, man. I don't need your approval. Like, all I have is to love. Like, that's the only thing that I'm not owed anything by anyone. All I have is to give and to love.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, well, wouldn't you like run out of stuff to give and love if all you ever did was give and love to other people? Like, turns out, no. Turns out, like,
this just in.
When you pour out your cup and you like just that with that tiny example, like you're taking the L, you're covering your guy's back. And it talks about that later in the book about like, when they're in combat, they're covering each other's six.
On your
There's a few terms you gotta learn.
Keep up, guys. Come on.
It's an abundance mindset because it's like all I owe to the world is to love, and if I'm covering my guys back, then that's going to be better for the team, and it's going to be better to win, which is to make this guest feel seen, cared for, and related to.
That's right.
See earlier.
Yeah, man. I mean, but it all starts with that check in the ego. That's the thing we say a lot is check your ego at the door. Yep. Are we playing a team game or are we playing an individual game? Because maybe in the eyes of that guest, that one time you did get their drink wrong.
Right.
But what's more important, the team or the guest? And I think we're saying team.
The second chapter, we've been talking around this, but it's a good line. No bad teams, only bad leaders.
Right.
Teams reflect their leadership. Yeah. Poor performance is a leadership issue. A leader's mindset and energy shape the team's success. Fix problems by raising standards and setting the tone. I feel like some of that was chat inserting itself a little bit, but certainly that first one of like teams reflect their leadership. Poor performance is a leadership issue. If you just think of any issue in your business, however small, however localized to one person, however, whatever, if you think of that issue as a leadership issue, you get to problem solving faster.
Right. Yeah. And I was thinking, we're talking about little scuffles behind the bar, but if you're a cafe owner or a manager, you're probably thinking from this zoomed out view of you're like, but this is all wrong. This is just not right. This is bad. This area of my company is not performing well. Where do you start from there? It's like, okay, fine. It's my fault. I built this thing wrong. And that's where I know I might be skipping ahead, prioritize and execute, but I'm like, there's something to starting with the empowerment, checking your ego, receiving it like, hey, this is my fault. Knowing if it's my fault, I have the power to fix it.
Yeah.
And what do I want to fix first?
Right.
Because you can't fix everything on day 0, right?
That's right.
And we have those like borderline crushing conversations, on a regular basis of like, okay, what's wrong with Valor right now? Mm-hmm. Because it's our fault.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do about it? And we had that around the end of the year. And it was financial clarity, inventory issues, green coffee issues, like epic training post-hiring. It's like,
yeah.
All right, boys, we're licking our chops. What are we going to start with?
Yeah.
And then you get in it, right?
Right.
You prioritize and you execute.
That's right. Yeah. You can't do it all at once. So prioritize and execute. Yeah. I think of times where I'm trying to be like devil's advocate with this because I've really struggled with this book too, of like, I've just ebbed and flowed where it's like different times in my career, I've been like, man, is it really all my fault? Can there be some things that aren't my fault at all? And that's a little disclaimer with this is like, we're not saying that when your team is underperforming, you have to we're not saying that like you can't talk to people about their performance. And that's maybe a misconception that I had with this book. But I understand like when you're trying to get across a concept, you can't just give all these disclaimers of like, well, sometimes blank, sometimes this. It's like, no, just say it, Right. Which is why the title of this podcast is what it is. It's kind of to the point. But so we're not saying like when one of your people in your care is underperforming, you can't hold them accountable and address it very pointedly and clearly. That's very necessary.
Well, yeah, it talks about setting standards and setting the tone, and it's still your fault when you have to fire somebody.
Yes.
Like, I guess I shouldn't have hired them.
Yeah, at the very least, you shouldn't have hired them. But to build upon that, it's like I could have given them this feedback this time.
Yeah.
I could have changed the way I handled this. Let me give you a really specific example that I want to own right now that I've been thinking a lot about. And it's actually, what made me think of it was extreme ownership. But Sam, our roaster here, and he's not even just the roaster, he's the green buyer and
more than that.
Basically the GM of this roastery. And he's been on the podcast before. Great guy. Known him since high school. Love that guy. Anyways, when he got into this role of leadership, I thought like it would be a good idea to go through a book with Sam. And so I bought him a copy of Extreme Ownership. And I was like, let's go through each chapter one per week and let's just talk about it. But I think we did maybe 2 weeks and then I just let off the gas and I stopped reading it and he stopped reading it. And then we just didn't talk about it again. That's on me.
Leaders set the tone.
Right. And so it's like every time, and this is not me throwing him under the bus at all, it's just throwing me under the bus. Every time I see him not stay true to his word, or not that he like rampantly does that, but it's like everybody does that sometimes. Everybody doesn't follow through in the way that they want to or say they will. That's just part of making mistakes. When that happens, it's like, dude, I think about that time where like we were both on the same page about something. I cast a vision of like, hey, let's go this direction. And I didn't follow through point blank. And it's like, I think about that with my kids, my wife. Like if I'm setting the tone and I'm not following through with the direction I'm saying we should go, how can I expect them? How can I get mad at them for also doing that?
Right.
If I call myself a leader.
Right.
Leading means like, we're going this direction. Let's do it this way. Let's live our lives this way. Leading by example. And the freeing thing about all this though, is that the cool thing about extreme ownership is like humility is such a huge part of it. And grace and forgiveness is a huge part of it too, where like, yeah, so what I did, like, it's bad that I did that with Sam and I didn't follow through. But the cool thing about it is I can just own it. And even that's a teaching opportunity.
Absolutely.
That is leading by example by owning the thing that I sucked at.
Mm-hmm.
And so that like, even the L's are dubs,
right,
if you will, if you handle them well.
Yep. Dude, that's cool. Yeah, because if you get stuck and you're like, now I can't bring stuff to Sam because I messed up.
Yeah.
It's a very broken system of perfection being the standard.
Right.
But ownership is the standard, right?
Yep.
And then when you're ready to own up to your junk, it's like, hey, let's move on together. And there's something too that is I think we've learned over the years, and just being a startup, you want to be so careful with your words of like, when you're hiring people, like you could do this for the company one day, full salary, like this was going to be your career. And it's so easy for words to get really empty, and promises to not be met. And there's a certain level of like managing expectation. So I think the chapter 6 talks about simple, complex and confusion leads to chaos. And so as a leader though, maybe someone who's like, can operate in like a dreamy state, you can wax eloquently of like, oh, this would be awesome if we did something like this, or this would be great if we did something like this. But knowing that when you speak, like you need to be prepared to follow through to the end. Because the reality is, right, like you weren't just not doing that and not doing anything else. You were just doing other stuff in that season, right?
What do you mean?
Like you had stuff going on, so there's...
Oh, yeah, with the Sam example,
with the Sam example. Or like whatever, like, hey, let's do this. And then you don't do it. It's because the system is faulty.
Yeah.
And that's probably where, developing more and trying to get into this like second brain stuff.
Yeah.
Because man, things just fall through like none other. You know, I'm starting to rely on my calendar a lot more because I'm going multiple places, and we have an orientation today, and it wasn't on my calendar. I was verbally told about it, and I was like, all right, I know I need to like move some shifts around, change my schedule up, edit my Calendly, but I didn't do any of it because it didn't show up in my calendar, and that's not on anyone else's fault but mine, you know? And so what do? I double book myself for 2 interviews. I don't move the shifts around, and I have to like text people last night. I'm like, can you do this? And all of that kind of emotion dredges up of like, oh no, like I'm imperfect. I can't do this kind of thing again. Or like, I can't carry myself like the perfect leader I want to be.
Yeah.
But I literally thought about this book and ownership. I was like, oh, I made a mistake. I need to communicate my vulnerability to my team that I made a mistake. I need their help. I need them to cover my 6.
Yeah.
And I don't need to like act like I did it right. And like they're, you know, like, you know how you can try to twist it. You're like, no, this is your fault.
Yeah.
You know, you should have known that you needed to cover that shift.
Right.
Buddy. I'm mad, but I'm going to let you do it anyways. But it's like, hey, I made a mistake. I know what happened. I'm not going to let it happen again. And, wink. I'll do my best to not let it happen again.
Yeah.
And Riley, if he was on the program, he's really good about that. You know, when something goes wrong, it's like, you know, hey, it's okay. How are we gonna not let it happen again? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna learn? Is learn in here?
I'm sure learning is a part of the book.
Yeah.
The next chapter, we're kind of skipping around. That's okay though. This stuff is all just so relevant. Which man, if you haven't read the book, I would just read the book, y'all. Hey, listeners, I think it might really change the way you look at leadership in team building. Last note on this: no bad teams, only bad leaders. If you are a leader and you're listening to this podcast and you have high turnover in your cafe, and it's hard to keep good people on your team, I understand we're in a higher turnover industry of, you know, young cats that are coming to work for your cafe for 6 months, for 3 months, for 9, whatever. That's a part of a nature of the beast. It's tough. It's difficult. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about we can't seem to keep good people. And it's not because they had a life change. It's not because we're in a high turnover business. It's because, why? Because there's no bad teams. There's only bad leaders. And it may seem harsh to think of yourself as a bad leader, but just run with it of like, okay, what could I have done differently? It's like, okay, maybe I'm not that good at hiring. Oh, that's tough to admit, because it's not like we're in this really high cash flow business where you could bring in this like hiring firm.
I don't think they have headhunters like for baristas.
Barista headhunter. It's like, okay, well, what the heck do I do? You know? And it's like, okay, well, let's start with developing mission, vision, and values for your company. Because that goes into the next chapter, which is titled Believe. Leaders must fully believe in the mission before they can inspire others. Team members will only commit if they see conviction in their leader. So my mom talks about this all the time, but the difference between a manager and a leader, if you see yourself as a manager, what does that mean? That means that you're sort of just managing the things around you. You're putting out fires. You're not proactively thinking. Whereas a leader, if you think about it in terms of battle, like the leader on the battlefield is like the first one to charge towards the opponent. Like leading by example, setting the tone, setting the pace. Like, guys, follow me and follow me with this amount of veracity.
There's movement involved.
We're going this way. Whereas a manager is just like, it's reactive. It's not proactive.
Stagnant.
And so if you want to hire better, if you want to lead better, then you have to ask yourself, what are we leading towards?
Where are we going?
That's your vision.
What are we doing?
And we've talked about in the past, the vision is the destination. We're headed this direction. That's the goal.
How are we going to get there?
The mission is how you get there. It's the daily fuel, the daily task, the orders for that day to move in that direction. And the values are the tracks that keep you pointed towards your vision. But if you don't have all of that, then like you're a manager, you're not a leader.
Ouch.
I hate to say it. And also you could have mission, vision, and values and be a manager and not a leader too.
I've managed some days.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. And again, this is not to get down on anybody or ourselves. This is just to say it like it is. And I try to aspire to this and fail all the time. But
falling forward
for sure. So that begs the question, do you have those things listed out? And we've talked a lot on other podcasts about how we got to our mission, vision, and values. And there's not only one way to do it, but that's just, we've at least documented how we do it.
Yeah. Coffee shops are funny, man. I mean, we're all just taking the order and making the drink, you know, and you can just stop there.
Yep.
But if you stop there, that's typically not a place people want to invest in, you know, and probably you're also not that invested in it.
Right.
So why would someone you're paying care?
This reminds me of a season in Valor where it felt like we were roasting really, really good coffees. And then we weren't seeing the passion and interest for coffee in our cafes. That was sort of like our main problem for a while.
Yeah.
Like a year ago.
Yeah.
Or so. And I was just talking to somebody on the phone about this. They were talking about their cafe. But, and it's exactly what we were saying at that time, where it's like, man, it feels like not everybody, but a lot of like the culture in our cafes is we have a bunch of really, really awesome people that work really hard, and they're really, really hospitable to our guests. The team dynamic is awesome. It's healthy, but it feels like we have operators they know how to make the drinks, not how to
follow the recipe.
They know how to follow the recipe, not how to be a true like coffee professional who is innovating or like being interested in trying new things or excited when a new coffee hits the menu and wanting to try it, you know, taste it.
And whose fault is that?
That's the only thing that matters is who does that come down to? And that's what this Believe chapter, I'll read it again.
It's our fault, just to be clear.
Leaders must fully believe in the mission before they can inspire others. Team members will only commit if they see conviction in their leader. So it's like, okay, the goal is we want our staff to be passionate about coffee. And it's like, okay, well, what are we doing to make that happen? It's like, well, not much.
We're looking around, we say, oh, yep, nope, nothing. We were just counting on us to be the coffee guys.
Yeah.
But then the more we got removed from the space, we didn't really like do anything to change that, you know? And what happens is you get mad at other people first. You're like, oh, why aren't you like this? And then you go, well, I haven't done anything to set the standard or set the tone for that person or empower them or give them the tools to be the way that I want them to be as a leader.
The team was doing perfectly at everything we gave them, which was recipes.
Yeah.
Which was like, here's some nice machines. And then we gave them values and we, you know, like hospitality principles and like they were killing it at all of the things we gave them. And they were not killing it at the things that we didn't give them, which was like, principles for coffee and more training on that side of things, and like
Space
more information. Yeah. More information on coffee drops and all this stuff. It's like, it was on us, man.
Absolutely. And a huge thing that we were hanging our hat on was hiring. We took an ethos of Cat and Cloud, and we misapplied it, which was like, we're going to focus on hiring nice people and teach them how to do coffee because coffee's easy. And it's like, yeah, but it's also nice to like care about coffee, and try to find people with interest and passion in it. Not like, I don't drink coffee, but I'm really nice. And I think we've seen that in the channel, the VCC, Valor Coffee Community, people being like, do you guys hire people that don't drink coffee? Because that happens, especially shout out to our Gen Z community, and less special there. I don't see, there's, maybe not as much specialty coffee aficionados.
A lot more iced latte.
Maybe a little more matcha.
A lot more like energy drinks.
Maybe a little matcha.
Maybe matcha.
Or maca. Or hojicha. Anyways, but yeah, it just, man, if you can really let that sink into your bones of like, when there's a problem, understand that there might be an initial reaction to cast blame and like get mad at someone else. But if you can just slow down enough to be like, it's my fault.
Yeah.
And I can fix it. It doesn't mind. It might, what you said was a year ago, and we're on the way.
Right.
We're not where we want to be. And I mean, that's kind of a cool thing about a vision. Is I don't know if you ever really want to be like sitting pretty right on it.
Oh yeah. Our vision is to match the top 1% of coffee in the world with the top 1% of hospitality and guest experience in the world. That's a lofty goal.
Right.
Right. And if like you're saying, if we're just like, yeah, we're doing that every day, man. And like, we need a new vision. What the heck is a vision other than like it's a destination that you're chugging along to?
And it's not only forward, it's forward and backwards, and it's like side to side. We get better at some things, we get worse at some things. For as simple as our industry is, I mean, there's some difficulty to it. This
next chapter is, we've talked around it, but just I had one more thought on it. Check the ego. And one of the bullet points is, ego is the enemy of progress, teamwork, and learning. The mission comes first, not personal pride. Like, just think about this in terms of combat, if you will, which is where they're coming from. If we were on a SEAL team, me and you, which, man, I don't...
Sorry.
You think like basketball and frisbee conditioning will get us there?
Hey, some of the way.
If your mission is to go and collect reconnaissance.
Yep.
I don't know all the terms. I'm probably sounding like an idiot. You're going to collect some intel,
some data
on an enemy. That's your mission. You've got 10 people on your team, and you're mobilizing towards that mission.
Yeah.
If you fail, or if you make a mistake, Ethan, you make a mistake,
never
or
happen.
You go the wrong way, or you give a wrong order, or it's whatever. It's like, if I'm going to get mad at you, or if I'm going to let my ego get bruised because you told me to do something wrong, or like whatever the situation is, doesn't really matter. It's like, if I focus on that is taking away from the most important thing, which is accomplishing the mission.
The reconnaissance.
The intel.
Remember the reconnaissance.
Remember the mission. And again, this just goes back to our last point about mission, vision, and values. Like, okay, if the mission comes first, not personal pride, or not X or Y or Z or whatever, what's the mission? What are we headed towards? What are we doing?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, we're making drinks and taking orders. Well, like, turns out that's not a good enough mission. Sorry.
Dude, but we're being a catalyst for community.
It's not a good enough mission to take orders and make drinks.
Right.
Like, yeah, you can you can have people on your team that will do that for sure, but it's not going to be special and it's not going to be magical. We need something deeper.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be this like weird, intangible, frou-frou, like type amorphous thing that we're headed towards. It can be very simple, and it has to be very simple. Like for us, uplifting people through coffee. That's our mission.
You can do it every day.
You can do it every day.
Every person.
In every department.
Yeah.
You can do it internally. You can do it externally towards guests. It's simple, but it's powerful. So what's your mission?
Right. Man, I was even just thinking about that domino effect. That was such a good example of, behind the bar, or even on a team, like if someone goes down or someone makes a mistake, I think we've all been there when we're working and then that mistake just hits the guy next to him. And it's like, well, this day's ruined. Yeah. This person's having a bad day. So why bother? And it's like, doof, doof,
yeah,
doof. And it's the power of just like one bad day or one bad mistake can really mess up a whole day, which is kind of lame. That's a real uphill battle, but I'm sure that's probably where a lot of us get is like, and maybe that's why we're frustrated seeing that inconsistency. It's like, well, sometimes it's good, sometimes this is a nice place to be, but man, we're fragile. If one thing happens, the whole system's blown.
Right.
And it's like, okay, what do I do? How do we fortify? But I just think the world's your oyster when we start taking on this principle of like, we can do this.
Yes.
Hope. Do we have hope for this business?
Hope is powerful. That you bring up, I think, a good point, which is most of this conversation has been around leaders that are like at the top of their organizations or at the top of their team. But a lot of people listening, and certainly oftentimes in our lives, like we're not the leader. Like like if you're just a barista that is working on a team, you don't have a title of leadership. Extreme ownership is just as important for you than it is for the leader.
Absolutely.
And let's say, like, again, if your coworker is just in a crap mood and they're bringing everybody down, sure, it's their fault they're in a bad mood, or like maybe it's not their fault. Maybe they've got stuff going on in their life or whatever, but it's like, they're the ones bringing the bad, quote unquote, to the situation. And so if you're in a bad mood and we're on bar, Ethan, how am I going to take ownership of this situation? Really, all that is at the core of that is like, I can't control you. I can't just snap my fingers and make you better.
Yeah.
So I have to own my actions. I can control my actions. So what can my actions be in that situation? There's tons of things I could do. How could I contribute good in the situation is how I could take extreme ownership here. Like, hey, what can I do for you? You seem off. Like, I'm here for you. That's me taking ownership in the situation, and I'm coming alongside you instead of pointing my finger at you and accusing you.
Yeah.
Because we're on the same team, headed towards the same mission, and the mission is all that matters.
Right.
So if I want to get to that mission and you're lagging, it's on me to help you get back up to speed, get to a better place, because we got a mission to accomplish. And I know that in the future, I'll need you to do that for me. So I want to set the example, not even as a leader, but just as a guy who's trying his best.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I need to set this as a precedent in our culture, because I am just as much of a culture shaper as the leader at the top.
Yeah. Where's the line, of like, and I think a lot of people have different answers to that question as far as I'm on the team. What does it look like to be the leader I want to be one day while also honoring the leader who's at play.
Yeah.
You know? And a lot of times there's like space for you to look out for your team, you know? I'm just thinking about the people that grow at Valor, right? They have, even from the get, they have just like a team perspective. It's not like an individual, well, I have all the shots pulled, you know, I have everything ready to rock. It's just this other person's struggling. So, you know, where's my promotion? It's like, well, what are you going to do to help? How are we going to lift each other up? How are you going to fulfill your mission right there of uplifting people through coffee? Because I think some people may hear that and have a fear of like, well, I don't want to overstep.
Sure.
I don't want to start barking orders, you know? So what does it look like to not bark orders, but take ownership of your team, you know? And I feel like looking after your team and just coming to the people around you and finding ways to serve them is just like a never going to go wrong type of mindset. You know, it's not like you go over here, you do this, but it's like coming to them in humility, being like, hey, what can I do to help this situation?
Right.
Because I think what I find, or maybe what you've seen, is like, if we're just talking about the bar space, when things are bad, it's because no one's talking, right? Someone's having a bad day, someone's like feeling it, or it's really busy, and then everybody starts to just kind of like shut down. But you need people that break the ice, and they're like, it feels like this is happening.
Yeah.
I know we maybe can't fix everything, but what are our options?
Yep.
And sometimes that's what I'll have to say, like, what are we working with here? Like, what do we need to do? Does this person need to just go home? And we're gonna do this? Does this person need to go in the back? Do we need to do a switch?
Yeah.
And you can take that on from a teammate perspective, or even just sharing that with your leader, being like, hey, I think John is like having a really hard time up here.
Yep.
Do you want to check on him, or I can check on him and just see what he needs so we can fulfill our mission at hand, you know?
Right. This is another thing we've talked around. They call it cover and move. You remember this?
Good coffee?
Hey, Riley.
Riley likes the zero defect.
It is nice.
New pink box coming.
Yeah. Cover and move. Teams must work together and support each other. Okay, thanks, chat. Silos and internal competition weaken the overall mission. Prioritize collaboration and shared goals over personal interests. When I think of cover and move, I think of kind of some of the stuff we've talked about of like what they're getting at, like the examples and the stories they give in the book are like, you know, you've seen it in movies, or if you've been in situations like this, you know, but like when someone is running across a field of combat and there's gunfire, very high stakes situation.
We've all been there.
You need, if someone's moving across that atmosphere,
Cover me.
you need someone who's going to stand up and cover and fire back at the enemy while your guy moves.
Let's just all imagine paintball. Okay.
Let's think of it in terms of airsoft.
Well, that could hurt, dude.
Paintball hurts worse than airsoft.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
And dude, think about paint explode. Like,
I'm scared of both, bro.
Toxic paint.
Yeah.
It's probably bad for your skin.
The dyes alone would have an effect.
You need someone to cover you. And so it's funny to apply. You can apply these principles anywhere. But it's like,
let's go to the cafe.
Now let's cut to cafe, right? It's funny but it's like, whatever.
No.
Somebody is, let's say a guest spills a drink.
There you go. And that's like shooting a gun.
It's kind of, in this situation, yes.
It is like gunfire.
A guest spills a drink, right? And you, Ethan, you see it, and you run to the back, get some towels.
Full speed.
You're moving, right?
Cover me.
I need to cover you. Why? Because the mission is what matters. The mission is uplifting people through coffee. The mission is keeping our operation chugging to serve as many people as we can, as quickly as we can, as excellently as we can. You're going to execute a moment of delight supporting a guest. That's in line with the mission. But I've got to cover your station, even though it's not my quote unquote responsibility.
Right.
Maybe I'm on Expo, you're on Concierge. Maybe I cover your 6 and I'm like, hey, we'll be right with you.
Right.
Thanks for being here. My name is Ross. I'm making drinks. Ethan's over there, but I'm engaging with the guests because I'm covering you.
And that's someone that has eyes for the whole operation, not just their individual station,
Right.
Probably the most common example of this in a cafe is someone who's supposed to be taking orders is not at their post because they're doing something epic. And it's like, are you just going to stand there and be like, well, they'll be back, or are you going to go get up there and do something about it?
Right.
It's that simple. Hey, speaking of simple, our next chapter, simple.
Complexity leads to confusion and failure. Oof. Keep plans and communication clear, concise, and easy to execute. If people don't understand, it's the leader's job to simplify. The confused mind does nothing. One of my favorite business marketing
Socrates
phrase. The confused mind does nothing. It's so true in leadership. And what I think of here, like my journeyman version of all of this that I take with me on the daily mindset is like, okay, there's a problem. What could I have done differently to help this or prevent this?
Yep.
My next thought is always systems. Sometimes it's not systems. Like sometimes I was a bad guy or something. Or I did something that was not right.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like, okay, we probably could have put a system around this that made this whole situation preventable. Like even the situation with the book gate with Sam.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about second brain. I could have had a system in place on my end that reminded me every week to read the dang book.
Every week have AI send you chapter summary notes so that when you talk to Sam, you can be like, yeah, what I thought was interesting about chapter 2.
Well, that's a system. Like it's just for someone like to get my phone to remind me to read, or like, hey, you've got this thing in the calendar that's like a one-on-one 15-minute hangout with Sam to talk about the book.
If there's one thing we don't have, it's excuses anymore, as seen by all of our software.
Right?
We should be.
We've got plenty of tools. It's just, are we using them or not?
Is there a Zap for that?
Is there a Zap for that?
A Clavio for that? Okay.
But the system, like I think of one of my main jobs as a leader, and one of the things I enjoy the most is creating systems for people to operate.
Yep.
And the cool thing about that is I don't have to do it all by myself too. That's another key aspect of all of this. Like as the leader, you don't have to come up with all the ideas. You don't just have to bark orders and tell people how to do things. It's like, how do I unlock greatness in everyone on my team?
Yeah. In the cafes, we talk about, when we flip the kind of like leadership pyramid on its head and the leaders are at the bottom supporting, a lot of times that removes them from that context line of guests and like baristas. And so that context is so vital towards providing solutions to our problems. And so if we're not engaging our team, listening to our team, checking our ego at the door and hearing the problems of the team, because a lot of times we'll assume problems or think there's something we need to be working on. And then, we put it out there to the team and they're like, this is nothing. This is a nothing burger. But, getting that context is so vital towards getting the proper solutions in place. And a lot of times people already have an awesome solution. It's like, we just need to do this. And it's like, oh, I think I may have mentioned that before, but like, I'm so grateful for a team that's like, hey, this time of the day is really busy. Can you move the schedule around? And I'm like, Yeah. 100%.
Right.
I'm just not going to do it because I didn't know. And ignorance is bliss, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. But you have to, I was just talking again to Sam about this situation. It wasn't at Valor. It was in another situation, but you have to have a type of relationship with your team,
right,
that is friendly to that, what you just said.
Absolutely.
Like your team feels like they can come to you with problems because they know that you're not going to be a jack A about it.
Yeah.
They know that you're not going to just turn it around and blame it on them. They know that you're going to get alongside them to problem solve and keep working towards the mission.
Or even in a different way, what I've felt and seen and experienced is like, or it's like, well, they already have so much going on. I don't want to bother them.
Yeah.
Because then they bring a problem and you're like, I have to do the schedule. I have to do this. I still have to go to the grocery store for the half and half. And I still have to do all this. When you're bringing this to me now, like my job is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, that's your fault.
That's a problem.
That's a big problem.
Oh gosh, that is.
I got to fight that junk.
Dude. Okay, let me own something else right now.
Confessional
this
podcast.
Is freeing. Okay. And speaking of our trip to Philadelphia, and I can't even remember, this is me apologizing on air. I can't even remember if I fully owned it in the moment. I feel like I did, but Austin, just comment below if you felt like I own this or not. But he basically was like, yeah, Ross didn't really like, he was kind of joking. He was like, Ross kind of kept me in the dark about this whole trip. And like the details of it, like he had to reach out to me and
still coming.
And it's like, yeah, what are we going to do on this training and stuff? I didn't communicate as clearly or as frequently as I should have. Mm-hmm. And that put him in a place of like, I know they're coming, but I don't really know what we're doing.
What, why, who, when, where. Right, dude, we're staying at your house.
And he said this thing in passing that was like, I know he's a busy guy. I know you're a busy guy. And I was like, oh
crap.
No.
Never too busy for you, Austin.
I think I maybe own the communication thing, but I didn't own that. And that's what really broke my heart.
Dude, I thought I heard crying in the hotel room that night.
3 a.m.
I'm sorry, Austin.
I'm guilty of exactly what you're saying, which is.
And that's why I brought it up.
You could have just told me about it, man.
No, you had to come to
wait on the podcast. Your team or the people in your care should not view you as a busy guy or as like too busy for them.
Right.
It's okay to be busy or like to have your hands in things and be active, but to come off as unavailable or unreliable or uncommunicative because you seem to be busy.
When you're probably just mismanaged. Hey, speaking from experience, y'all.
Goodness gracious. This is when it starts to really cut. This is when it's real, man.
We're hurting with you guys.
If you've made it to this
right now,
this is at the end of the podcast. This is, but like the whole mismanaged thing, like how, and this is the last chapter that we'll talk about. Discipline equals freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline in processes, routines, and execution creates more freedom and efficiency. Consistent effort and preparation reduce stress and unpredictability. Success isn't about motivation. It's about disciplined action. When I think about that, I'm like, dude, if I'm not remembering to communicate the details of this trip to Austin in this situation, that's not because I don't care. That's not because I'm not motivated.
Say it to the camera.
Austin, I know you're at the gym right now. It's not because I didn't care or I wasn't motivated or any of these intangible amorphous things. It's way more about like, I was probably mismanaging my time and focusing on the wrong things.
Like your family.
Like I was focusing on my family, and that's why I didn't do a good job. No.
And that's how you cover your own 6 right there, baby.
Right. Yeah. You give an excuse.
I'm a father. Okay.
I'm just a dad.
I'm trying.
But I think the point of what we're saying here is like, if you feel like you're always behind the 8 ball, if you feel like you're always putting out fires, it's probably your fault for not managing your shiz well enough. Right?
Dude, there's some more points that it says on the chapter. It's be confident, but not arrogant. Be aggressive, but not reckless. Be disciplined, but not rigid.
Oh, God.
Oh, crap.
I need to get that tattooed.
Yeah, I'm going to get that tattooed like on my forehead.
Like right stenciled into my skin with
stick
ink.
And poke, baby. Because it's like all that stuff. You're like, oh, man, are you just going to be like this juggernaut that's like always so like hard and just always pushing and like, oh, I can't do that. My schedule won't allow it. There's something that be disciplined, but not rigid. You know, the best ability is availability, and you have to be available for your team in the right time. Like I had a plan yesterday, but then I got really busy in the cafe and they needed to do their breaks. And I was like, this is not a 2-man operation right now.
Yeah.
I got to go get behind the bar. I'm just not going to do what I was going to do, and I'll have to do it later.
Right.
And I did it later. That's fine, you know? And when we have that luxury, that's a gift. But that's a little note in my head too of like, okay, if that keeps happening every day, I need to make an adjustment, you know, not like complain or not point fingers.
Mm-hmm. This is my last thought. This is a little bit off script, but it's like, I feel like some people, you and I are different, Ethan. Okay. And I think
even though people think we're brothers,
dude, people do think we're brothers,
but you're so much taller.
I don't understand why.
And I'm so much more handsome.
Right. I've got the tall card. You've got the face card.
Yeah.
Right. Some people need to hear like, hey, you need to dream more. You need to think big picture more. You need to zoom out of your day-to-day more and think about your priorities and think more on that side of things. I feel like that's where you are sometimes.
I need to dream.
You need to get out of your pragmatic brain sometimes and think about why you're doing what you're doing, because that could help you improve in some way. All right?
How dare
Bro.
you? How dare you?
Whereas I'm over here forgetting to follow up with people or lacking the system or lacking the action, like with Sam. It's like I had a cool idea to go through the friggin' book with Sam, the new leader. Sure, that's a good idea, but I need more pragmatic like action. And that's what that, like one of these last points of what was it? Success isn't about motivation, it's about disciplined action. That's what I need to hear. I've got the motivation. I've got the ideas. I've got the vision.
Right.
That's my strong suit. But I don't need to work on my strengths. I need to work on my weaknesses.
Whoa.
Which is like disciplined action.
Yeah. Such a good way to wrap it.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Seriously.
I hope I really enjoyed this, and this was really all just for me, honestly.
And that's what it's all about.
I need to own
this
right
whole
now.
thing's been for you, man.
I need to take some extreme ownership that this was a selfish podcast and that I'm going to try to be a better leader now.
Dude, fall forward.
And before we wrap.
Right.
Speaking of business and
ownership
and good things, Localize is a group of great people that helps you with your SEO.
They're disciplined, but not rigid.
They are very responsive. And in order to be responsive, you have to be disciplined. I will say that.
That's a good guy.
If you're a coffee cart, if you are a coffee roastery, if you're a coffee shop, if you're any business, search engine optimization, it's got to be like top 3 or like number 1 way.
It's only getting more important, Ross.
Ranking high when people search keywords related to your business. It's important. And especially if you're in a catering operation, you don't have a storefront.
Maybe you're new to the scene.
Your website is your storefront. It's like the same as having a good location. If you're a coffee shop, you know what they say? Location. Localized
growth.
I say it 4 times.
Oh.
And so they can help you with that. One of the biggest ways that you can improve your SEO profile is through backlinks, and they're offering a free backlink when you book a call with them. Talk about your business, talk about your priorities, and it's like a $200-$300 value usually, these backlinks, and it links your website to other websites on the World Wide Web, and Google likes that. It's a key indicator of a high performing website is having backlinks. So localizegrowth.com/valor. localizegrowth.com/valor. It's in the show notes. Check that out. Up your SEO. And I think that's a wrap, Ethan.
Thank you for your time.
It's been good.
Peace.
Good night.